The first thing is, the Quraysh were letting the other Muslims make hijrah. Why? Because they were actually now plotting to kill the Prophet. But they wanted his followers to be out of the city. Because we know they had Ta'af system, they were worried that it's going to be a problem amongst the tribes. And so Abu Bakr knew this. They wanted to kill the Prophet ﷺ. And Abu Bakr knew that going with the Prophet ﷺ on this hijrah was basically the most dangerous thing that he's ever going to do. And he didn't care because he's going to be with the Prophet ﷺ. And so they go to the Jabal al-Thawr. Now another thing to remember is you cannot, the Sahara is this huge place, right? But the Arabs were master trackers. This is what they were masters of. They could find anything by tracing their track. When I was in Mauritania, we came over a Kidya, a high mountain peak. And right as we came over, this Bedouin boy that I was with said, "Oh, look at that man over there. He lost his camels." And I looked, I was saying, "Where?" He said, "Over there." And I'm looking, I couldn't see anything. It took me maybe 5 minutes. And then I saw this little ant-like figure out in the middle of nowhere. And there was camels that were also looked like ants over to the other side. And he said he's trying to find his camel. He saw that just coming over the horizon. They knew all the tracks. They knew animals. They were masters of this. So don't think that they were fleeing, into safety. They would probably have been safer to stay and hide in Mecca than to go out into the desert. And so what do they get? Suraqa ibn Malik, who's one of the best trackers of the Arabs, when they hear they're offering 100 camels. 100 camels for the best of creation. This is the element of idiocy that had afflicted these people. When Umar said that the Arab, they used to make idols out of dates, and then when they got hungry, they ate them. He said, "Ya Rasulullah, where were our brains yawma idin? When he reflected, but that is what ghafla is. You see, that is what, if you're a ghafil, you're mughaffal. Mughaffal is a simpleton in the Arabic language. Mughaffal means like a simpleton, a stupid person. They say, mughaffal, he's simple. Just leave him alone. And that's what ghafla is. When you're in ghafla, you can't use your intellect, because intellect is light, it's nur. That's what it is. It is the light that Allah has given you to guide yourself in this world through following Allah's messengers. You have to follow with your intellect. أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ? That's what Allah said. أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ? Don't you use your intellect? So they had lost their intellect, offering 100 camels. So they go to Jabal al-Thawr, the Prophet ﷺ. They go in, and I went there. It's a very small cave there. They went inside the cave, and 3 nights they stayed there. 3 days and 3 nights. The Arabs found them quickly. That it wasn't difficult for them. They walked all the way up Jabal al-Thawr. They got there. The tracker goes up, and they find the tracks end at the cave. But there's a spider's web, and there's a dove's nest with the eggs still in it. And this tracker says, they couldn't have gone in here. And they said, why not? He said, no, it's impossible for these two things to be here. That's a materialist. That's the materialistic mind functioning at its best. You see, that man could not conceive of anything out of what they call kharq al-'ada or mu'jiza, anything out of the normal, anything out. His tracking skills, of which he was the finest, told him it is impossible for a man to be in this cave with this spider web untouched, because a spider could not have built that web in the time it took them to get to this place. That's what his materialistic understanding told him. And there the Prophet ﷺ is, in there. And Abu Bakr said, wallahi, if he would have just looked down at his feet, he would have seen it. Imagine this man, the most courageous of men. He's not worried about himself. He's worried about the man he's with. That's who he was worried about. He went in to clean out the cave. They had snakes in there. He went in to clean out the cave. ثاني اثنين إذ هما في الغار. The two of them. Inna Allah ma'ana. The Prophet ﷺ said, Ya Abu Bakr, la takhaf. Ma wannuka bi-ithnayn thalithuhum Allah. What do you think of two? The third is Allah. In one tradition that I heard from Sheikh Atiyah in Medina, and he mentioned that there was weakness. Some of the seerah mentioned these things, but because it said that Allah anzara alayhi sakina, that He made this sakina come down. And one of the traditions was that Abu Bakr looked at the back of the cave, and there was an opening, and he saw the Red Sea with a boat there. Allah. So these men leave because there's nobody there in their reckoning. And then the camels are brought and they set out on the journey. Suraqa, he wants this 100 camels. He's convinced that this is a big reward. So he sets out with his best jawad, his steed, and he goes out and he tracks them down because he was a great tracker. So he gets there and he said, Suraqa said, I could see the two of them. Muhammad ﷺ was reciting something, and Abu Bakr kept looking back. It's so beautiful because it's an act of love. That's what it was. His fear is the fear of the most courageous of men, because he's not fearing himself, he's fearing his beloved, his Habib, the Habib of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he's looking back worried about this situation. Every time Suraqa gets close, his horse starts sinking in the sand. Now Suraqa was very intelligent, and he knew that this was not normal, because he was a master of the desert. And after this happened 3 times, he said, I give up. And he told them, I'm not going to go any further. And then the transaction happens, and the Prophet ﷺ told them, how much did they offer you? And he said, 100 camels. He said, Ya Suraqa, Aina anta wa asawir al-Kisra? Where are you and the bracelets of Kisra? And alhamdulillah, he wore them when they got to Medina, and he became Muslim later. And then Umar, when the gold of Kisra came, Umar held up the asawir, and Suraqa he said, the Prophet said that I would wear those. And so Umar gave them to Suraqa, and he put them on. And then Suraqa, he was going to take them. Umar said, where are you going? He said, well, the Prophet said I was going to wear them. He said, you wore them, now put them back. So then he goes to Medina, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, and they arrive there. And the Prophet goes into the house of Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, and then things start to happen in Medina. People have all become Muslim. There's munafiqeen, the Jews are problematic. These things are happening in Medina. Abu Bakr is there with the Prophet. When Ghazwat Badr comes, where is Abu Bakr? In the tent with the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet imploring in his dua, Ya Allah, in ahlakta hadihi ta'ifa, falan yabqa ala al-ard man ya'buduka. If you destroy this small group here, nobody will remain on the earth to worship you. And he's doing it so much. Now the Prophet ﷺ, this is his ilhar al-ubudiyyah. We have to understand that. The Prophet is manifesting his slavehood to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Abu Bakr says, Ya Rasulullah, it's enough. He promised you the nasr. He's telling him, because he's looking at him and seeing him in this agitated state, which is, the Prophet, his heart's not agitated. He knows this, he has yaqeen. But this is his manifesting ubudiyyah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so, then Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu in Uhud, when the Muslims all begin to fall apart after the people are disobedient, and the kuffar are yumathilun, they were mutilating the body. The Prophet ﷺ was there, and he said he looked and he saw Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu running alone with his sword out towards the ranks of the mushrikeen, alone, to stop them from mutilating the bodies of the Muslims. And Abu Bakr and the Prophet ﷺ said, "Aghmid sayfik, ya Abu Bakr, put your sword away. La tafda'ni bi nafsika. Don't overwhelm me by losing yourself." And Abu Bakr came back. He always obeyed everything the Prophet ﷺ said.